Welcome to today's ACRO Podcast. We're extremely pleased to be able to dive deep into a topic that has generated a lot of interest within the organization around mentorship. I would like to take a moment to thank today's sponsor, NovaCure. NovaCure has been a great partner with the organization and has funded travel grants to our annual conference coming up again in 2022. So we appreciate their support in making today's program possible. With that, I'm going to introduce today's host, Dr. Mona Arbab, who is the chair of the ACRO Residents Committee from Indiana University. And Mona, take it away.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us. So I have the honor of introducing three amazing speakers for today. I'll start with Dr. Emily Merfeld. She's a radiation oncology resident at the University of Wisconsin. She's currently the chair of ACRO Mentorship Program, and this is her actually second year on the ACRO Resident Committee. Outside ACRO, she also likes to do clinical research and is also interested in brachytherapy. Welcome, Emily. Our second guest is Dr. Jessica Schuster. She's a clinical associate professor at the University of Wisconsin. She's also the chair of the ACRO New Practitioner Committee and works closely with the ACRO Mentorship Program. So welcome, Jessica. And our third speaker, who we have the honor of having her today, is Laurie Baedke. She's a faculty member, director of healthcare leadership program, and associate dean of physician leadership education at Creighton University. She's a well-regarded speaker and author with broad experience building companies and leading organizational change. She also has specific expertise in emotional intelligence, well-being, and strength-based leadership. She also hosts a weekly podcast called The Growth Edge. So don't forget to follow her on Twitter and listen to her podcasts. She holds a bachelor's degree in human services and business administration and a master's degree in healthcare administration. At the age of 26, she became the youngest individual to achieve board certification as a fellow of the American College of Healthcare Executives. And she has been certified by the Gallup organization as strengths performance coach since 2006. So welcome, Laurie. I actually asked everyone if they're okay with being called with their first names instead of their last names, and everyone agreed to that. So I think I'll start with Emily. She has been the ACRO Mentorship Chair for the past year. So Emily, can you tell us about the ACRO Mentorship Program and your experience as the chair?
Absolutely. So the ACRO Mentorship Program is organized and managed by the ACRO Resident Committee. And people from all across the country and the world are involved in the program at the senior faculty, junior faculty, resident, and medical student levels. We've had participants from different countries sign up to be matched with a mentor from the US, and mentees come from both the academic and the private practice setting. We do our best to match mentees with mentors that have interests or geographical locations that align with the mentee's requests. For example, if a mentee is interested in academics in the Northeast, we do our best to find them a mentor meeting that description. Or if someone has a particular interest in a mentor to discuss balancing radiation oncology career and family life, or balancing clinical duties and a career in basic or translational science, we do our best to find them someone who we know have experience in that regard. So basically, we send an email introducing the mentor-mentee pair, and they take it from there. Over the past year and a half, we've been able to match 44 residents with attendings and 81 medical students with residents. And so it's a very popular program throughout our relatively small field. And we've gotten really positive feedback from both mentees and mentors. Most pairs have that initial meeting and then continue on with additional formal meetings, as well as just engaging on a more informal level going forward. Mentees have reported learning specific skills from mentors, being introduced to new people through networking opportunities that their mentor has opened up. And some mentees even mentioned being connected to a permanent job through their mentor. And so lots of benefit to the program that mentors and mentees alike both enjoy.
That is great. Thank you. I'll then move to Jessica as the new practitioner chair. You have worked very closely with the mentorship program. What do you think is the highlight of this program, and how has it helped the new practitioners?
Thank you, Mona. I think that that was my first introduction kind of to the new practitioner committee, was working with the current resident mentorship committee member, and felt like there's kind of, as a new practitioner, you have unique skills that you've just recently graduated and you've gone through the process of going from a trainee into private practice or academics, and navigating some of those like unique challenges that are relevant to your career, but don't necessarily come across in didactic lectures. And so you have an interesting knowledge set where you can help those PGY4s and PGY5s with job interviews and these kind of things. So it's very rewarding to feel like, oh man, I've just finished up and I have this unique skill set that I can kind of pass on. And then from a mentee standpoint, there's still so much yet to be learned as you navigate your career. And so it's nice to have kind of participation from other slightly older ACRO attendings. And so I've participated in both directions. And I find that my relationships with my mentees have been very rewarding. You know, some interactions have been just once or twice, like, oh, that's interesting that you're doing this research. And, oh, I know this person that's also interested in that topic. Or, oh, maybe you're interested in education resources. Did you know about different groups? Or also knowing kind of, hey, you're going to have to change your email because they're going to kick you out. That's a very important thing. Like, grab all the information you need. It's something that nobody tells you, but it's very important. And then from my own self being a mentee, I think some of the things that have helped me is like abilities to participate in ACRO and reaching out for educational resources, and then helping some of the ACRO kind of webinars, I think always highlight topics that are a little bit unique. For example, we have one upcoming about like promotions and things like billing and coding, and just making sure that you're aware of some of those other resources that are out there. So thus far, I think it's been very rewarding on both sides. And that new practitioner setting, you still need both.
That is great. We have always had your support in the resident committee, so we always appreciate that. And you have helped a lot of residents as a mentor. So thank you for doing that. And now moving to Laurie, I have a few questions for you. We have always heard different terms, including mentorship, sponsorship, and coaching, and we have always heard about formal and informal mentorship programs. So can you tell us a little about the differences and what each term is and what the major similarities and differences are?
I think that's a really important question. Thank you for asking. And so I'll give you 3 different responses. I want to kind of take you through 3 different layers of how I would define each of those roles, because in whole, really, these are people that are allies that pour into us. And so when I think about the first definition of a mentor, I think about someone who has knowledge and shares it with you. And when I think about the first definition of a sponsor is somebody that has power and will use it for you. And a coach is someone who has expertise and uses it to train you or teach you. The next layer of those 3 definitions, typically how those relationships live or how they exist, a mentor typically talks to you, right? Remember, they have knowledge, they're sharing it with you, they're talking to you. A sponsor, like I said, is someone who has power and will use it for you. So sponsors are typically talking about you. They're in rooms where you're not, but they're advocating for you. They're saying your name in a room where people are discussing a plum opportunity, for example, or who to consider for a new promotion. A coach is someone who provides feedback, or even more specifically and typically, a lot of the times coaches aren't giving you the answer, but they're asking you questions to guide you to a discovery so that you can kind of have that insight for yourself. So that's the second layer of those definitions. And then when we think about the objectives, why do any of those three relationships exist? Mentoring is development driven, right? We're looking to develop our skills and our knowledge and our awareness. Sponsoring, because it's an activation of power, that's advancement driven. And then coaching is performance driven. So there's three different definitions for those three different roles from my perspective.
How about formal and informal mentorship opportunities?
Yeah, another great question. I think that we need to be really broad or holistic in how we consider these roles and not to overlook the value of informal mentoring. I mean, formal mentoring, formal sponsorship, formal coaching is something that we should intentionally seek out. But the fact of the matter is all three of those activities can happen informally. And most commonly, that looks like the ways that we can be mentored or sponsored or coached by peers, for example, right? And so when you think about if you're in your training program, it's very valuable to be mentored or coached or sponsored by your attendings, by the faculty in your program. But you shouldn't overlook as well how that process can occur, unilaterally with folks that are in your program. And as you get out into your career, certainly maintaining relationships with colleagues within your own institution or that you trained with who might be elsewhere geographically or institutionally, but are peers to you, they're trusted to you, they're gaining similar but uniquely different experiences. And that perspective can be so, so valuable. And so sometimes that process of mentorship or sponsorship or coaching is happening more casually around us, and we can overlook it. So it helps us to broaden our understanding or our mindset of what that looks like in practice.
That is great, especially like trying to keep the mentorship relationship, which is sometimes difficult when you move out of an institute, but you highlighted the importance of doing that.
Indeed.
So what is the outcome of mentorship and why do we need to invest in it?
Well, we have an hour for that question, right? I kid. Well, there's an abundance of literature that talks about the byproduct or the outcomes of mentorship, and I'll highlight a few. There's research that talks about mentorship conducted by Gentry and Walsh, published in 2016, that said that individuals who are mentored, they're better prepared for promotions and they have higher success rates when they do achieve them. They stay with their organizations longer. They feel more satisfied with their jobs and their careers in general. They rate higher on performance measures. They're perceived as more innovative and creative. They show higher resilience to setbacks, and they have stronger networks. And so if you think about those outcomes, and that is one study, there are dozens, if not hundreds or thousands of studies that have really looked at what are the byproducts of individuals being well mentored or sponsored or coached. And the fact of the matter is, the more that we have others to use as advisors, as sounding boards, to help us to have an objective voice of reason to talk us out of some of the mental games that we'll play for ourselves, or overcoming insecurities or self-doubts, or knowing that we have a big challenge ahead of us, and we've got maybe some safe but not very effective actions that we could take, or there's something that's a little bit more risky, but probably has a little bit more potential for impact. If we have someone who's been there and done that, and they can be a sounding board and they help to talk us through what's the downside, but is it probably worth it? That's where you get that, you're more innovative and creative, and you show higher resilience to setbacks if you don't connect the first time you swing, right? And that's very real. All the things that we have to undertake in our professional career, whether it's the tactical things that we're taking on or as we're pursuing ascending in leadership, we don't always have success the first time around, right? And so the importance of having people around us so that they can be that voice of counsel, that voice of encouragement, that voice of accountability to hold us, to bust our chops and say, hey, you said you had that goal and you were going to hit it by this timeline. That was last month. How are you doing? right? Those are the reasons why we have mentors and sponsors and coaches around us.
I think we all agree that mentorship should be available to everyone. But unfortunately, in the field of radiation oncology, some medical students come from institutes that don't have a radiation oncology department. So finding a mentor is very, very challenging for them. So what do you think we can do to bring opportunities for everyone and also bring equity, inclusion, and diversity to mentorship programs?
Yeah, great question. And that is a really tough challenge, especially in a niche subspecialty like yours. And so I would challenge you to get really creative in how you think about where those resources can come. And so if you're a learner who doesn't have someone inside your institution, talk to folks in a peer group or an affinity group within your specialty association, this specialty association, and find out who outside of your institution might be able to mentor you. And don't overlook, of course, the ability for other individuals in other departments who might not have that acute, connection to your subspecialty, but still can offer a lot of valuable insight about a number of the key challenges or issues that you might be facing. So you might have to look outside of your institution. There might be great resources in a non-conforming way inside your institution or local community. And then this is where professional associations really thrive. And frankly, hat tip to you all for being the glue and the infrastructure that connects folks throughout the nation within your subspecialty, because it is through being involved in professional associations that allows us the access to other folks who are doing the same work that we're doing in a different institution or a different geographic area. And that type of connection or ability to reach out into the network and be connected with someone is invaluable at every single stage of your career.
I feel like ACRO is trying to do that and bringing that opportunity to medical students as well as residents. So I think we're almost close to the end of our podcast. Anyone would like to give any additional comments or take-home messages at the end?
I'll start. I will just, a question that I often get on this topic is, when do we need mentorship or sponsorship or coaching? And I would say there are 4 times. The first is anytime that we're making a transition, right? That's a really important time for us to reach out for advice and counsel. And so first is when we're making a transition. The second is when we're, in a tough season of adversity. If you're really struggling or you're in a down cycle for some reason or another, it is incredibly important to put people around you who can encourage you, who can equip and develop you, and who can advocate for you. The third time is when you're achieving success, frankly, because sometimes when everything's going really well, we can get complacent, or we can get blindsided very quickly, or we can get too big-headed. And it's really important to be able to stay humble and well-equipped. So number 1 was career transitions. Number 2 was in times of adversity. Number 3 was in times of success. And number 4 is always. Honestly, it's my deep belief that mentorship and sponsorship and coaching, not only are they bidirectional, in that we should always be well mentored and well sponsored and well coached. But at every single step and chapter and season of our career, we should be turning around and we should be mentoring and sponsoring and coaching.
That is a great point. So we'll keep that in mind as a take-home message. You always need a mentor. So look for a good mentor.
And I will follow that up by inviting everyone to visit acro.org and sign up for our mentorship program there.
The last comment I would have is that you're never out of kind of being the mentor or the mentee. And so always encourage folks that in different seasons, I have found that I've gone back to mentors that maybe I hadn't had a recent contact with, but because I knew they could help me in a particular area. And so, even though the relationship may not be active monthly, know that most of us as mentors or as you as mentees can always reach back out if the season of life has changed and you're looking for, that person. And it's never, there shouldn't be anybody too intimidating to go up to chat with a little bit as well. And so encouraging, medical students and residents that if there's somebody that you wish your career could emulate, it's probably a good idea to chat with them. And even that kind of brief engagement sometimes can be very meaningful.
So thank you so much. On behalf of all our amazing speakers today, I would like to thank ACRO and also Novacure for giving us the opportunity to do this podcast on an important topic, which is mentorship. Thank you.